Hello, and welcome to episode 148 of Dissonant Waves, our first regular episode in a few weeks here. My name is Dominic. Who's waking up with me today?
I'm Corey.
Not me. I'm Trix and I'm still half asleep. Probably be half asleep for the entire.
That's not Corey.
I kind of now hope Corey sounds like me. I hope he sounds like me, just so it does confuse people. But no, I'm back. I've been away for a little bit due to going to a massive festival and then watching a bunch of Counter Strike during the usual recording time. So I've not been able to actually have a clear schedule. Now I do. So I'm
And
back.
and coincidentally, our Green Day coverage is over for the minute. But we do have quite a bit to talk about this
And
week.
sounds like Trix is over.
Sorry, I got a
You're
bunch
right there,
of
Trix.
cat hair in my throat.
Oh, that was Trix.
How did you get a fucking hairball?
My cat likes to fucking. I
Monty. Good old Monty.
yeah.
Alright, so this week's stuff can be declassified by a few different categories. We have the sci-fi corner, which includes A Flock of Seagulls, self-titled Flock of Seagulls. Radiohead's Hail to the Thief, Muse's The Resistance. You have the Nothing Rhymes with David corner, covering the Australian music journalist David James Young's band, Nothing Rhymes with David, with Double Negative All the Way EP, the Equals EP. The album Things Work Out for People Like You, and the newer album Sky Lonely. And then there's Dead Man's Bones, self-titled Dead Man's Bones. That's kind of a island upon itself. So,
Oh, we got a lot. We should probably start somewhere.
Trix,
Indeed.
what do you think?
Why don't we get start with the band that is famous for its haircut?
A Flock of Seagulls. Yes. The one with I Ran So Far Away on it. Their self-titled debut.
Yeah.
I did not know this was going to be a sci-fi album. I was very pleasantly surprised.
Oh yes, it's a sci-fi album, and it's funny. The single is far the best song on this album. Second, actually, best of the album.
Yeah, so I mean, what do you think is better than I Ran So Far Away?
Space Age Love Song by a mile.
That's interesting. I don't know. I feel like I was revisiting this album a few different times over the weeks, and every time I feel like I had different opinions about it. And I think I landed somewhere.
It's definitely
Definitely what?
definitely an interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting album.
yeah. You're kind of like cutting in and out a little bit, Tricks.
Sorry, I'm holding the phone up.
Yeah, but I feel like for what this album is doing, in the end, these songs are pretty short for what they are, and as a result, sometimes I feel like they could be a little bit more meaty, and that's why I think I like songs like "I Ran So Far Away" and "Man Made" more, because they took their time. Everything
Yeah,
else is a little bit, I don't know, just kind of there and gone.
Yeah, it came to me as, and mind you, we covered quite a lot in this in some kind of obscure and just existing albums here. This one is somehow, despite the popularity of one of the songs off this album, it it's fine. Like you listen to the whole of it, it you can't really go to a specific moment and go, okay, this shit me to tears. Yes, I haven't used that line in a while. But I also just like really, I mean, I've had the busy weeks like I am, so that's not to say that I've given these like 20 listens and therefore can put out the full talks. I've only managed to give as much listens as I can to all this. But this one just had so little memorable moments on it. Like you listen to it in the background kind of thing, and it's all fine. Like you can remember the sound on this, you can remember the vibe, and you're right. Surprisingly, despite having a very popular pop song on here or new wave as it's more, it is more actually of a sci-fi sound that you get on here, which causes a bit of a surprise. But
Yeah.
there's nothing in there like going like, okay, well, what do you say is a sci-fi moment? It's like, well, what is that sci-fi moment? There is no big other moment outside of like that little period that happens with Iran and yeah, a bit of Space Ave's love song, but that one still doesn't really flow in my head, especially when I know we've had quite a lot of other albums to cover this week, and they're more occupying my mind. But even some of the other ones, I've given as much listens as this, and there's still so much more memorable moments on them.
Yeah. It's like there's supposed to be like there's like a love story happening here and like alien invasion and all of that, and it's like yeah, I get a little bit of that. But if this is meant to be like a conceptual, fully like thought out, like you know, maybe not like fully like present the beginning and like the Black Parade or something, but at least thematically consistent, I don't necessarily see that outside of the titles, and of course the shared sounds because the sound bed's pretty consistent.
Mm.
I don't think it was supposed to be some big, huge conceptual thing.
Fair enough. But for what it is, it seems like the a lot of people really liked it at the time. You know, there was like a Robert Christgau had gave it some really good reviews. Apparently, Phil Spector fucking loved it.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want to hear.
Phil Spector apparently
Yeah, the
wanted to
murderer.
produce their next album at some point, but never did.
Because he was in prison.
Yeah, when did he go to prison?
Gosh.
Um, prison.
Uh, and Iran was a pretty big music video on MTV at the time too.
Well, that was in the 2000s. He did the murder happened. But yes, yeah. The it was a famous like low budget just like video that MTV played over and over and over, which gave the song a lot
Yeah.
of exposure. And maybe it's because of that that this was their most successful album, both critically and just like societally.
Mhm.
It's one of those weird
Now, I
things.
know Iran's been used in. I just want to say, I know it's been used in so much media, so like everybody will probably have their own kind of like, oh, this is what I remember it from. And it's not the first time I've heard this. I think like the first time I probably heard it in full was Guitar Hero Rocks the 80s, because it was randomly a song in that. But like what I actually remember every time I hear this song, there was a YouTube video of a concept for Lego GTA that used this.
Oh, that sounds cool. I can
It
see
was
that
also in
working.
Vice City.
I'll see if I can find it.
I'm pretty sure
Pretty sure what?
uh, Iran was in Vice.
Well, it took me 2 seconds to find it.
I mean, for what this
17 years ago, holy shit.
for what this was in the U.S., apparently this was seen as a very political song because they say the words Iran like Iran the country, and there was some stuff happening with Iran at the time. So it got a weird bump, I think, in that like, oh, they're being hip and political, but not really saying super much. But they're inserting it in there if you're looking for it. And it's just kind of like, sure, yeah, all right, whatever. When the Lonely Island did their Iran so far thing, I think they were much more clear about it being a weird political thing.
Yeah, well, that's literally called Iran so far. And like going into Wikipedia, it just goes SNL Digital Short, which I don't really want to care to read into Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, it was like oh, if I remember correctly, it was a video that was like a weird, ironic parody tribute to Gaddafi. But yeah.
2000s were a weird
They
time.
were.
Kind of glad they're over.
But of course, this song only made it to the number 9 on the U.S. charts. In Australia, it went to number 1. So people quite
Yeah,
like
it seems
this.
to be the only country in which. Yeah, that's Australian report charts a year, especially back in the day. Now they're a bit more Americanized, which fucking sucks. But yeah, around there, that actually is no surprise. That's like exactly what usually gets the number one from the 80s around there. I mean, I would have grown up hearing this song on the radio quite a lot in the 2000s still. So it's
Yeah.
not like it was a came and went type of song either.
No, I feel like this for
No,
me,
this lingered.
it lingered, but I feel like this is one of those songs for me that like it's like a B or C level 80s song, if that makes sense, where it's like it's not Don't Stop Believin', but it's not super obscure either. Like I get this song and
What I actually find, I just want to interrupt with the charts thing here as well, and it's definitely not a surprising part of the times here, but it was number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100, but it
Mhm.
was number 8 on the US Billboard Dance/Disco Top 80, which presumably means in that logic there that 8 out of the top 9, and probably 9 out of the top 10 songs around that time were considered dance or disco tracks. So I'm curious. I want to know. I mean, I guess obviously years and stuff go by then, but I want to know what was the highest non-dance track of that year? Because supposedly there'd be one that was potentially a top 10.
Sure, yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe only just a top 100. But yeah.
I was going to say briefly, I lost it. Holy shit. It was gonna be just a quick comment, but
Apologies, I got sidetracked. We all got sidetracked.
Yeah.
let's see. I have the songs that were above it, at least on the dance album. I cannot imagine all these songs being more popular on the regular charts. That seems impossible, but here we are. Uh, we have "Live It Up" by the Time Bandits at number 7. "Do I Do" by Stevie Wonder at number 6. "Planet Rock" by
I mean,
Soul
Stevie Wonder
Sonic
was big.
Force.
Stevie Wonder.
Number 4 is "Stormy Weather" by Viola Willis. Number 3 was "Keep On" / "You're the One for Me" by D Train. Number 2 is "Let It Whip" by Daz Band. And number 1 is "Thanks to You" by Cinnamon.
That's so wild time. That I think like Stevie Wonder was like the only one I probably heard of. I think D Train might have. So
I
yeah,
have heard of.
yeah. So I mean, that's probably a difference in the countries showing right there. I don't
Yeah.
think much people are listening to Cinnamon, but let me search up and be completely proven wrong on Spotify right now.
Cinnamon with an S.
I've already. Yep. All right.
3.2 million views on Spotify.
Yeah, that is probably not the right one. That is probably the right one. No. So what was the song from Cinnamon?
Oh shit, hold on, let me go back to it. "Thanks to You."
Okay, well, apparently, from what I see, Cinnamon, Thanks to You, 1982, unless it's a different one, its current plays on Spotify is 1,667. That's
Yeah, okay. That sounds yeah. I
that's
mean,
wild.
this is a band that apparently existed for about 2 or 3 years. Oh no, number 12 years. I'm looking at that wrong. 12 years, but they only released singles for like 5 years of that, and they only had a handful of like singles and things. So it doesn't look like they were a super hard hitting group.
There is a version here. Uh, so it's just timing differences, but it's basically showing how lost in time it is, which has 105,104 listens on Spotify, which I think is that would probably be it because it's in a Star Funk Volume 4 compilation. There might be a couple other ones, and I'll search up now. Thanks to You, and see if I can actually find a more popular one. All time lows has it as 8,294,000. If that is a cover, which I doubt,
Doubtful.
but
Yeah.
what it is.
I will say I did have a bit of a nefarious reason. So
Yes, I remember you said there was a reason you wanted to pick this and Dead Man's Bones.
I forget I forget the exact reason for this, but they were not connected. To say that. But I think The Cure's later work was very heavily inspired by Flock of Seagulls because Just Like Heaven sounds like a rip of Space Age Love Song. I will say that.
I suppose I can kind of see what you're getting at. I think Just Like
Like
Heaven is a
I hear
phenomenal
a
track.
lot of Space Age Love Song, Just Like Heaven itself.
If it's like they had to walk so the Cure could run with the sound, I will accept that.
Okay.
But I mean, like in terms of the new wave you've kind of shown us, this is relatively unique still in like the sounds they're doing. Like you can definitely differentiate this from New Order or Joy Division or Talking Heads. So that is interesting. Like
Definitely.
kind of exploring the new wave side of things, where you kind of think of it as all one thing. But like I was gonna say before, this occupies the same space in my mind as that "Rock Me Amadeus" song, where it's like it's a cool
That's
Oh,
little
that's a
fair.
classic.
yeah, it's a cool little '80s thing, but I know nothing about the band otherwise. So I'm glad to have learned something about this
To
one.
be yeah, I think they're both
I will.
technically one hit wonders, aren't they? Or did
Uh, yeah, Flock of Seagulls is technically considered a one. Or even they aren't really.
I know Rock Me Amadeus is definitely a one hit wonder, but I just didn't know if Flock of Seagulls was.
I think they had like a couple
I think
smaller
it's one of those
hits.
things where they're
Yeah,
yeah.
well,
I think it's
smaller hits doesn't
Yeah,
disqualify you from that. The whole, I believe it's top 40 in the US. It has to be. I mean,
top
obviously, it
100.
becomes different now when we talk. It's top 100 they consider for the one hit wonder. I thought it was
Yeah,
only just top 40.
top
I thought
100.
it was even more stricter. All right,
it's that one of those things where I
I'll
guess
check now.
where it's like technically, I guess Gautier does fit that, but Gautier is so much more than one hit wonder, really.
Yeah, and I think that Flock of Seagulls is only considered like a one hit.
You cut out there. What was that?
I think a Flock of Seagulls is only considered like a because I think they did better across the pond.
I
There's a
think
weird thing about one hit wonders as well. I mean, I've seen many people just throw out the claim, and it's like, oh, here's other songs and stuff by them. It's like, but I also see people get confused with one hit wonder, and they're more well known for one song, or people just like one song. Like Vance Joy had quite a bit of popularity overseas as well. I mean, Riptide was huge in Australia. I don't think it was as big overseas, but it was still big. But uh,
Every
he
girl
also
with a
had Messer's
ukulele knows how
Mind.
to play it.
Yeah, yeah. And Messer's Mind off the same album, I'm pretty sure had the same success, but I still saw uh, people refer to it as a one hit wonder. And it's like, even by the technical definition of the term, it was false. It might not have been Messer's Mind, but pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's not. It'll at least actually be Lay It On Me, I think that one actually also got. I'll have to check it.
apparently Falco, the Rock Me Amadeus guy, has several hits internationally, including Der Kommissar, Genie, The Sound of Music, Coming Home, Out of the Dark. The Rock Me Amadeus is the only German language song to make it to number one on the U.S. Billboard charts.
You know who is like the strangest U.S. one hit wonder? He did phenomenal in his home country.
Who?
Mike Oldfield.
Tubular Bells.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
only the rip from the X.
yeah.
Actually, this is the one that I always love to point out because it feels weird. Uh, the Strokes only ever had one song make the US top 100, and it was at number 98. Do you know what song that was? Reminder that this band had had a huge success with Is This It and Room on Fire.
Was it?
I don't really stroke.
Is it smoking in the?
Exactly, because it never got that big in the US.
Is it
Is
the
it so
bathroom
what?
the bathroom song? What is it called? The smoking in the bathroom or something?
No, it's the song Juice Box.
Jukebox?
Juice Box.
Oh, because I mean, Julia Casablancas was in the Lonely Island jukebox song.
It's not that one, no. It's a legitimate Strokes song for off First Impressions of Earth, which is not really a Strokes album that everybody talks about,
Interesting.
but that is the only Strokes song to ever get into a top 100 in the US Billboard to this day.
The song I was looking for was "Meet Me in the Bathroom."
That
Room
was
on
the
Fire.
single, so it was going to be a lot harder.
Yeah.
The Adults Are Talking did make US rock charts, as well as a bunch of like, I think, some of the stuff off their later album made the US rock charts as well. But they also did not exist prior and are not the top 100 Billboard. It feels weird because the Strokes are considered huge in the rock scene.
Yes.
I know not maybe like a Foo Fighters level, but they're still pretty big. And I mean, here they made the top 100 quite a lot of times in just the ARIA charts. I'm not talking just about Hottest 100. I'm talking about ARIA charts.
Right.
So it feels weird to think like, okay, well they didn't even make it there, but that's how the charting works. It's fucking weird.
I guess it's worth mentioning too that the track DNA won a Grammy for Best Rock Instrumental. So there was, I guess, some love given to other tracks on this album. Just, nothing that lives in memory beyond Iran.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the band with the weird haircut and the trend-setting new wave sound. So that's something they can hang their hat on.
Yeah. And
But it is one hell of a haircut.
I will always kind of have Space Age Love Song floating head. Such a beautiful song.
Yeah, I was not as into it, but I do love Just Like Heaven. So there is that.
Yeah. I
Um,
think I prefer Space Age.
that's bold of you to say.
I love Space Age. It's genuine one of the songs.
You cut out enough, so it's just not like you said. I love space.
It's just genuinely one of my favorite songs.
Fair enough. My favorites are I Ran So Far Away and Man Made. My least favorites probably, I don't know, Messages. That sounds right.
I'll probably just agree with you because it's kind of just a lazy option.
You already know my favorite, but I do not.
No
Phone
least
album.
favorite. Fair
Yeah.
enough. All right. I'm gonna say let's move on over now to your other pick. Let's go with Dead Man's Bones. Let's go to Halloween Time.
This is such a fucking good spooky album. This is the one I've been bumping the most this week, I'll be honest, just because
It's the time of the season.
Yeah, it is actually.
This is the Ryan
And,
Gosling, Zach Shields duo.
Baby Goose.
Yeah, Baby Goose, Ryan Gosling. Which this album has had several different critics claiming to like have found it and have written like a retrospective. There's like 3 different ones out there. It gets found like every other year.
Yeah. Like
Well,
I
we're
found it this
number
year.
8.
You both were talking over each other.
I found it this year. Is all I'll say.
Oh,
And
fair
I
enough.
said we're now number 8 for the critics.
Oh, yeah. If you include the 3 of us individually, sure. And this is
Yeah.
a weird dark folk album with a lot of like children's choir elements. Apparently rather influential. The band Behemoth has taken that idea and put it on one of their albums. They're also apparently cited by a band called Our Time Down Here, or Creeper, I guess is their newer name. So there's been a weird amount of like direct lineage that this rather obscure album has given. But like each track also has over 1 million streams on Spotify, so the people have just found this, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things.
In the Room Where You Sleep was also on the Conjuring soundtrack.
Yeah, that makes sense. It had like the most, I think, like 15 million streams or something.
Yeah.
I
will
find
say
this. Oh, you talk first.
I will say that finding this album, finding out that Ryan Gosling was in like a gothic rock band was my drive. He's literally me moment.
He's literally me, is what you said?
Yeah.
You gonna say Ritz?
He's literally me.
Yeah.
So I kind of now realize, like, going after having listened to it and going into retrospective, I'm not surprised Trix loves this because this is just a Halloween Dr. Dog.
Same record label.
I'm not
Not surprised. I
okay.
like this. Don't get me wrong.
So okay, I'm gonna say this. Not only is this a Halloween Dr. Dog, this sounds very similar to an artist we've covered quite a bit. Any guesses?
Say it.
Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling sounds like Shaky Graves.
Obviously, I get a little bit of that. Not gonna lie.
Like,
I mentioned
this
it at
country
like the
folk
very
in
beginning
this.
of the week.
Yeah.
I was very surprised at how similar they sounded. I was like, "Oh, you could Shaky could like do this song." I would actually really like to see Shaky Graves do a Halloween album. That would sound really fun.
He has a song called Halloween.
Yeah, but
That's good enough.
imagine if he like did this album like something like this. That would be awesome.
That would fuck lead.
Yeah, I don't know about doing the whole children's choir thing, but that was something. They definitely tried something with that.
Yeah.
I think some of the songs worked
It
really
it is
well.
worth noting that the Silver Lake Children's Choir is like thing organized by Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Weirdly.
Yes, we cannot escape the Red Hot Chili Peppers influence.
We cannot.
I'm just posting the fans also like on Spotify, and the last one is probably going to be attacking Tricks the most.
Let the fucker load slowly.
Oh, the last one's the Growlers.
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling, Timber
You got me.
Timber, She Wants Revenge, Dijo, Grizzly Bear. Then it goes to Neutral Milk Hotel, Orville Peck, and Bauhaus. Incredible.
Okay.
So yes, in some weird way, I think this aligns a little bit with some of our tastes, and it is quite interesting. It's quite some of the songs are quite memorable, I will say. This is definitely
Yeah.
the album I did not expect to like as much as I did, and kind of in the way that I kind of felt differently about Flock of Seagulls, coming back to it again and again. I also felt differently about this again and again, in that I kept liking it more. And they've only released the
I
one
think
album.
there's like a bit to
Amazing.
respect on this.
Yes.
Like it is obviously got the backing of being, well, Ryan Gosling. It's not like, oh, you're taking a risk on some nobody on this record. Like at the very worst, if they need to get the funding, it's Ryan Gosling. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't sound like overproduced pop or anything on this, so don't get wrong or anything like that. But you know, there is just a bit of, like, any time that you see actor go into music and stuff like that, you will always see a bigger chance on their stuff taking off. Obviously, that hasn't always been the case. Temps is still struggling, but
Yeah,
it will
fair.
get there. But
Int-
I mean, it is still a really, I won't say interesting in the case of, I think this is groundbreaking. I think this is a sound that is kind of already been played with, or it's starting to get into that. I mean, it is something that's a bit more improved on nowadays than it is here, and this is still pretty well produced for what it is. But it's more so, you don't really expect this kind of music to come out from Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
The story apparently is that Ryan Gosling was dating Rachel McAdams because they were co-stars in The Notebook, and Rachel's sister was dating Zach Shields, and so they were kind of like destined to meet at some point, and they bonded over their shared love of horror and like the Haunted Mansion ride and whatnot. And out of that grew this album that was originally supposed to be a musical, and then they decided that was too expensive.
Yeah.
Oh, here we are with this.
It
I was gonna say, and Zach Shields is now a bit more well known. Like obviously Ryan Gosling's more known, but Zach Shields actually has a career now as like a screenwriter and a producer. He wrote the Godzilla King of the Monsters and Godzilla versus Kong, I believe.
yes.
So his career is
It
definitely
is
going.
also worth mentioning. It is also worth mentioning that Ryan Gosling does most of the instrumentation on the album.
Yes. They
He does pretty much everything except for drums and some keyboard, I want to say.
they apparently had some like rules they were setting for themselves. Like if you're familiar with like Dogma 95, that movement in film that had like a very specific like way of producing a movie that was like realistic and like produced in the most natural way possible. This is a little bit kind of based on that, where they were trying to do, let's not do any click tracks, let's only do a few different takes per song, and just pick the best one and let kind of the flaws show through, and that kind of like aesthetic of like, let's not be overly perfect. Let's let the music breathe here.
Yeah.
So like you could definitely tell there are definitely some songs where it's like they probably could have done another take of that. But I kind of do appreciate that they were trying to not be the slickest thing possible.
They were trying to be schlocky in 60s and
Like, I have friends that like to listen to the most, produced and developed songs possible. Like any like a lot of K-pop people are gonna be like that, where even the most obscure K-pop song is gonna sound like it came out of a lab in a way.
yeah.
Artists, not many K-pop artists are gonna be, on that lo-fi. You give Ryan Gosling credit for wanting to be imperfect.
I do love that on the Wikipedia it says years active 2007 to present.
And yeah, they've not really done anything for like a decade at least.
We're still hoping it.
Yeah.
Album 2
We
coming
can
at
hope
some
for a
point.
second album.
Now that Ryan Gosling's singing career has taken off with the Barbie movie.
I wanna push you around. Yeah, I will. Yeah, I will.
I don't know. What do y'all think of the children's choir stuff? Like what songs do you think it works better with?
Telling me by a title is not going to be something that happens, but I don't mind it. I think you can definitely tell that there's supposed to be some kind of musical element happening on this, and to a sense, it kind of works on this album. I think it's you get sometimes when people try to do a scary album and you overdo it, but a lot of the fun of these types of Halloween albums is that it's obviously quite camp in a sense. I know this isn't an album that I would call camp, but I feel like you would call like that kind of children's crier kind of a bit, or if you kind of think about like old Halloween kind of the style of musicals and stuff. So I don't mind it when you realize this is supposed to just kind of be a playful little album. It doesn't really ruin any kind of like I'm going to use the word immersion, but it's not like I was genuinely believing I was in a skeleton situation right here.
Imagine believing you were in a skeleton situation listening to Dead Man's Bones.
Yeah.
I think
We've had the dead man's bones after the dead man's party.
It's you. You're the dead man's bones.
Yes, we have at the party, we've had the bones. How many other scenarios can we come up with for the Dead Man's materials?
This is the weirdest trilogy.
But I think songs like "My Body's a Zombie for You" that works really well with the choir stuff. I think "Flowers Grow Out of My Grave" works really well. But then other songs, I don't like "Young and Tragic." I think that song kind of sucks. It's cheesy in the worst way. And then yeah, Trix.
I was gonna say I quite like Paperback.
Paper Ships is quite good. It's probably one of the lesser talked about tracks. I would say it doesn't strike out as much as some of the other ones do, but it's fine on its own. I think Buried in Water is probably one of the other ones where the choir kind of strains the most. But for an album that has to have it for most of the songs, it's not as tiresome as I expected it to get.
So it turns out it's actually a series of 5 albums. It's Dead Man's Bones is number 1. This is just going on by how Spotify's on it, so that's actually the start of it.
Mm-hmm.
The sequel is actually Dead Man's Party, so we've done this wrong. Then it's Dead Man's Diary. Then it's Dead Man's Pop, and then it's Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest.
That tracks. That tracks.
Yes, 5 genders.
Well, we'll have to cover the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy in full at some point to make sure we get the full context of the dead man's journey.
It's there's 4 or 5.
There are 5
How is there
movies.
that many Pirates of the? Yeah, that seems unnecessary.
It is.
I thought it ended at
Fifth
the
one's
third.
horrible.
I mean,
It did.
I never quite liked them that super much, but they definitely got worse over time.
Have you seen okay, this is a total aside, but have you seen the hour-long deconstruction that somebody did on the Liar's Dice scene, Pirates of the Caribbean?
No,
I will link it because that sounds like it's up your alley.
but I remember the third one was like the most expensive movie ever made for quite a minute.
Let's see. It was a budget of 300 million and made 963. I remember it was huge, and it was like, I guess it's kind of just not to be surprised that the MCU does this now, because the sequel came out in 2006 and At World's End came out in 2007, and the first one would have come out a couple years beforehand, because they're probably like, hey, this is successful, let's make it into a trilogy. From what I remember, I remember number 3 wasn't bad when I watched it as a kid, but that's probably going to just be me as a kid.
Yeah,
And from what I remember hearing, that the sequel absolutely fucking sucked.
I remember the second
So who even
one.
knows?
The second one, Keith Richards shows up as Jack Sparrow's dad. My dad was very excited about that.
No, I can remember the second one and why it sucked. But then I remember it literally has the one good scene out of all of it that's still the only part of random humor, which is what plagued Pirates of the Caribbean. The only part of it that was actually funny was the "I've got a jar of dirt."
Ah, yes. Then the third one had like multiple Jack Sparrows and like the end of the world and a weird existential bit to it that was just very weird. That whole trilogy is like a fever dream. I feel like.
I would just like to say that Pirates of the Caribbean walk so that our flag means death.
Flag means
Could
death.
actually use the ship. That's the one with Taika Waititi. Yeah, that's the one with Gay Blackbeard.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Taika Waititi.
I still need to watch it. Apparently, it's really
I
fucking good.
cried. I cried like a bitch at the end.
Okay, not to
all I'll
just
say.
diminish that, but you've cried like a bitch to a lot of things we've covered.
I have.
I will get the
cry
Mount
like a
Erie
bitch a lot.
answer.
Oh, interesting. The soundtrack was done by Mark Mothersbaugh.
I'll get it.
Of course it is. He's touched fucking.
I mean, Devo, a new wave band.
Yep.
Is
The Sims 2.
Is Mark Mothersbaugh or Danny Elfman more influential?
Moth Mothersberg. Even just behind the scenes, I'd say he might not be as well known a name, but he's more.
Very interesting.
Because the dude did the music for The Sims.
He did The Sims. He did Sewer Shark, classic video game. The Super Mario World TV show.
Yep.
Skate 3. Boom Blocks. The Sims. The Rugrats theme. Can't forget that. Rocket Power theme. Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. Thor Ragnarok. I don't know. Looking at all this,
That being said, Danny Elfman does have The Sims.
Danny Elfman does have several superhero themes and several the Simpsons theme and all that. So I'm gonna say Danny Elfman probably still wins.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give it to Elfman.
It's a toss.
Maybe if Sliders the show had been as popular as some of the stuff Danny Elfman's done, I would give it to him, but I don't know.
I mean, fun album. That's about as much as I can say. It's
Yeah.
nothing groundbreaking. I mean, the thing that's the main selling point is that it's Ryan Gosling's band. I mean, as much as it is Zach Shields, I guess, as well. But I mean, yeah, Ryan Gosling does a lot more instrumentation, blah blah blah. It doesn't matter too much. It's one of those oh look, yeah, this is actor, he's put out an album and stuff, but it is genuinely a good album. It's
It
not.
does hold up by its own.
Yeah,
If you check like the YouTube comments of the various uploads of the songs, there are people learning for like the first time that it's Ryan Gosling's band.
I only heard about this band three weeks ago.
Yes,
Yeah, I only heard about it 3 weeks ago
It
myself.
it
as did
definitely
I.
reminds me a lot of the type of music that was around this time as well. There was definitely a boom in the late noughties, early tens of this type of folk music coming out. It actually kind of reminds me a little bit about of Jonathan Coulton.
Yeah, this is that it has that like faux fancy like buttoned up vaudeville kind of feel to it. Like you have actual Cannibal Shia LaBeouf at one end of that spectrum. You have like something like the Deer Hunter, Migrant, and some of the songs on that kind of also in that realm as well. The Migration Annex EP that everyone still refuses to listen to, even though they tried to cover it a couple different times.
Yeah, I don't even hate them. I just haven't done it.
That all kind of occupies a little bit of that like vaudeville dark folk like it's a kind of buttoned up feel. But if we're talking like favorites, least favorites, if we're all good to go on that, I'll probably give it to My Body's a
Yeah.
Zombie for You and Flowers Grow Out of My Grave are probably my favorites. Papa Power is kind of fun too. My least favorite's definitely Young and Tragic.
My favorites are My Body's a Zombie for You as well, and Papa Power. Least favorite? It's probably something towards the end, probably the title track or Paper Ships. It loses a
Favorite
bit of steam around that era, around that time.
favorites for me. I quite liked Power. The the Room Where You Sleep, I quite enjoy. It's just a good like with that bloopy '60s organ sound. And, I quite enjoyed Paper Ships, and I really don't. This album is just fun.
Imagine
Yeah.
if Alex Boniello put out this album.
I think we really like it.
This is yeah.
That would redeem some of his work on that EP he did.
What are we
So,
covering next?
do we want to cover David, or do we want to finish up Radiohead and Muse for the year?
Uh,
I want to finish up Muse and Radiohead.
I have
All,
no preference because I don't have much to say about either.
all right. This is the final installment of this year's Radiohead versus Muse debate, covering their most political albums. Well, Muse maybe not so much anymore, but for the time at least, their most political albums, Hail to the Thief and The Resistance. Both heavily inspired by 1984 and things like that. Hail to the Thief by the War on Terror. I think the Resistance more on the economic crisis of '08 and about around that time. Yeah.
I have now listened to Resistance in full for the first time in a while. It is been an album that I've considered good since my last listens, and I still think it's an alright album. And I will get onto Radiohead later. I just want to talk about Resistance first because this is definitely an album I remember when it came out because I would have discovered Muse around the time of Guitar Hero 3, blah blah blah. That's how I discovered music. And everybody was hyped for Resistance when Uprising came out, and being the kid I was loving that single as well. I still do believe to this day that Resistance has one of my favorite album arts of all time. I think it is genuinely a fucking gorgeous album art,
Quite
and
good.
that has still not changed. There's something just about how it does actually capture what they're trying to go for in there, and has genuinely a unique art to it, even if it is, probably not the most like, oh shit, we've never thought of this before kind of idea, but having like this one person and like this kind of almost sci-fi kind of vibe going into this, but it's like in a kaleidoscope. It's really lovely. This album does still actually have some of Muse's most interesting work compared to their whole discography, but going back onto this and going back into Uprising, knowing what we know about music these days and what Muse has gone and blah blah. And this album was a lot more pretentious than I remember it being.
I mean, yeah, it's pretentious. It is the blueprint for what Muse does from now on.
And Uprising does not hold up. I think for a lot of people it still will. Whatever, like the music you like. This is my time to complain.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's got a bad riff or anything like that, but I feel like it shows what this album does wrong times, in which I think it overindulges in this nothingness. Like I know, yeah, there was supposed to be this kind of whole like in context of what was going on, especially with the economic crisis around that time. But Uprising as a song and its lyrical content, it doesn't really actually say anything.
No, it doesn't, and that's kind of the central problem with Muse always is that their
Yeah,
lyrics are very pandering, right? It's like they will not force us. They will stop. What is it? They will stop creating us. That's not right. They will stop defaming us or something. They will not control us. We will be
yeah,
victorious. It's very basic. It's not calling out anyone specifically.
yeah.
It's just anyone in power. You know, nothing's gonna change, no matter who's in charge. Yada yada yada. Like, yes, that to a degree you can say that, but if that's your whole premise, there is nothing much to say then.
And the other weird thing about it as well is that it's the opener for this album, but then it just opens again with Resistance. And Resistance is so much fucking better.
I don't think it opens again. I think you have that moment where it's like it crescendos to the end and then it dies down and then you kind of ease into that more somber Resistance opening. I think it's a great I think for the record, I think this is a phenomenally structured album. I think these songs flow together so well. And this is just a great example of like that amped up kind of feeling you're supposed to get from Uprising then kind of dies down a little bit as you get into the Resistance and that love is the resistance kind of message happening there.
I fully agree, besides the flow from Uprising into Resistance. I just don't think that flows right at all. I feel like Uprising, in a theme of what it talks about lyrically and stuff like that, does unfortunately kind of work with this album. It doesn't feel like a bonus track in that sense, but it feels like it probably should have been somewhere else in this album, if it not a bonus track, because I don't think it's the opening to this album. I think if this album starts at Resistance, I wouldn't say it's better. I think it's. I would be a fool to say, oh, it's Uprising is the only problem with this album. No, because I'm also not a big fan of United States of Eurasia.
I mean, it's their
But
it's the,
the songs that still hold up. Resistance and Undisclosed Desires are still some of Muse's best tracks.
yeah, they're weird ones. Undisclosed Desires is a weird R&B, kind of like that Supernatural Black Hole sequel, but much more strange.
It's a lot more electronic.
Yeah, like this is their marriage of classical electronic and rock, which Muse now that's not as impressive, but for this, I think works interestingly well. What they have going on. Yeah, I don't know. United States of Eurasia is like it was where they really start leaning into like the Queen influences and more into like the arena rock and that Guiding Light's another big kind of stadium rock moment too. But I don't know.
Yeah, I fall out of this album until MK Ultra, and then it finally picks up, and this is like, okay, this is now where we actually get some good Muse deep cuts.
I Belong to You. I think does what United States of Eurasia wants to do, but better.
Yeah,
And I Belong to You is probably the song that
and
has
then
the least to do.
Exogenesis is.
Oh, Exogenesis
I'll
is
say like Exogenesis.
go ahead.
It's one track separated into three.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. If this was where Muse ended, no complaints. This would have been a great kind of
Well, some complaints, but yeah.
well, this would have been a great like capstone. Like if Exogenesis Symphony was
Mm.
like the last Muse thing. And like how do you
Well,
top
it's a
notch
good
the
thing they
Sidonia?
decided. It's a good thing they decided after their failed EDM inspired album in 2012 to call it quits and leave with a lasting legacy that was not tainted by future work, and definitely not trying to go back to that anti-authority shit that doesn't talk about anything in a very poor stadium dad rock album in 2015.
I will still defend the Second Law. I think the Second Law is more than a failure. I think it is a rather interesting album that, does continue down the path of the dad rock kind of no messaging, but still messaging bullshit that they're doing. But there was still at least interesting music happening. But that is something we'll get into next
The
year.
Second Law is weird because it also follows the massive EDM boom that was happening,
Yes.
but it's also one of the few artists from Muse's time to actually still manage to put out an album that chased that trend when the trend was existing. People forget that this massive dubstep trend that started the EDM boom lasted just under 2 years. Some people might not even remember that the dubstep boom was a thing. But in 2011 and 2012, dubstep was like the future of music, and it was weird. And it's eventually turned into other forms. Like it basically turned into trap, which is now actually the future of music. We've seen so much trap influence and stuff come out in just the last decade. It's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
And that's what the Second Law was. It was heavily influenced by that style, and I mean, you can kind of see that there is still electronic moments that happen on here.
Yeah.
Oddly enough.
I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say that Muse was still looking to experiment and still be groundbreaking in their way. Like that, I think that was what they were meaning to do with the Resistance and the Second Law. I just think they kind of lost their way after that. Like, Second Law still has songs like Supremacy and Madness that are not, super dubsteppy and
I'll happily actually defend Supremacy as well. Bond song to have not been a Bond song.
Yeah, if Muse had done a Bond song at this time, it would have been fucking killer. But we have the Skyfall theme, and that's still fucking great. So, but the Resistance, like I was saying, so the thing with the Resistance, I would say it's probably my second favorite Muse album. I think it is so cohesive, so just good at just being an album from beginning to end that I like it more than Absolution, but I still think for track to track, Black Hole still takes it absolutely. Because there's no song on the Resistance I think can live on its own, except for like if you were to take like Exogenesis into like one thing. But together they quite complement each other.
I mean, to me, Exogenesis is one thing. It's I have a feeling they just kind of like didn't want to put out a 11-minute track or 12-minute track, I guess it kind of goes for actually.
Sure.
Just as a song, but it should have been. They should have just stuck to their guts and done that because it is just one song. It doesn't have any break in its flow or anything like that. It just continues on, and it's a really great closer to this album. Actually, it's one of those moments that goes like because after Undisclosed Desires, and we get what is a very big lull period in this album for me. It's from United States of Eurasia to Unnatural Selection. I don't care for any of those songs. And then I mean I Belong to You as well is like a better version of United States of Eurasia, but it's still I only as good as it is. Exogenesis is a really well crafted it just closer to this track, which does round out the sounds that they're going in for in this record, which it does actually have a lot of classical influence, surprisingly, in this, which kind of feels weird when you've listened to Uprising. And that's kind of also the reason why it's like it does fit some points, but it just doesn't really fit with what else this album actually tries to do.
I mean, I still disagree because I think Uprising sets up the whole like this is a 1984 inspired album. This is an album that is directly like 1984 fucking Spark Notes fucking term paper bullshit in a way. And Uprising starts that, Resistance carries that forward, and it kind of sticks to that MK Ultra, that starts to be a little bit of like, okay, they're more talking about that, but the mind control aspect is in 1984 as well. It still fits. I Belong to You is pretty much a Matt Bellamy love song, so there's not a super big connection, but you can say, oh, the love story in 1984. This is like a big goodbye to that, and like a little bit of a nostalgic, I will always belong to you, I will always love you kind of moment. Sure, 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 sure. But Uprising definitely is like the introduction to all of that.
Now I'm going to ask Trix. So you got even one word to say, or was this completely washed over you?
I listened. It was a good soundtrack to the chaos, I guess I'll say.
What did you think of the symphony?
In a sense,
Anything about that?
it is right.
I could not tell you specifics, but I just remember thinking, like, oh, this is fun while I'm like, cooking 7 burgers at once.
Fair enough.
This was an album that did hit quite hard in 2009, and that's
Oh yeah.
I won't pretend like I thought it didn't. I liked it in 2009. I was big into Muse then. That's just how everybody was big into Muse was. But after having covered all this and stuff, and some of Muse's work still does hit. I think Absolution is still a fantastic record. I think Black Holes and Revelations doesn't hit as hard in full as it used to, but I still think this is good. And I think this one just is where we start to really see the flaws of Muse. But we still do have, even though all these flaws exist and all this pretentiousness exists, we do still have some interesting sounds and a good Muse album. I'll be interested to see what I think when I finally listen to the second Law again for the first time in a while. I'm actually just not going to listen to it till we cover it because I think it's interesting to get the fresh takes on that. Because that's kind of what the point is. But I did consider this for a while to be the last good Muse album. In a sense, this seems to still be true because I still do think this album is good. But I was surprised by kind of how much worse. I mean, I'd kind of had fallen out of love of Uprising for a while, so it's not like that's too surprising. But I am surprised just kind of how in full out of love I felt compared to how I was back when I was 11.
That's fair. The things you like when you were 11 sometimes don't hold up, unfortunately. But I will
Like
say,
my parents.
sorry to hear that. I will say, interestingly, this won the Grammy for Best Rock Album in 2011. Of course, it came out in 2009. The Grammy rules are fucking weird.
Yep.
Can we remember what came out and won the Best Rock Album the previous year?
Probably no. If we're going by this amount of time, probably Kings of Leon.
No. The previous winner of the Best Rock category was 21st Century Breakdown.
Fuck, yeah, you're right.
It's just as disappointing.
Which is the better political album?
I quite like 21st Century Breakdown.
Well, that's not even a question. Who the fuck actually goes and says, yeah, 21st Century Breakdown, that's a good album.
Me?
It's alright.
If my partner's about to walk in and say...
It's fine. It's good.
Definitely. Uprising, Resistance, sorry, is much fucking better than 21st Century Breakdown.
I would also agree with that. I think
I'd rather listen to 21st Century Breakdown. I'm not.
It's Muse this one wins that fight for me. Yeah, I mean, I came to Muse in 2012, so I missed out on the big Resistance push, right? But even still, I quite always liked this album, and when I was working at the secondhand store for the longest time, the Resistance was like the album we put on because it just worked the best for the retail environment. Nothing was too abrasive, nothing was too out of pocket, but it was like perfectly the right kind of rock that just set the tone, and it was just like no complaints front to back. And say what Neg probably says something about commercialism and capitalism and the bland messaging that Muse is really putting out on here. But that's my memories of this album. It's just like listening to it in the store over and over again.
Now, the big thing I've also been doing with this Muse and Radiohead has been talking about the Hottest 100 chartings of it, because both of them have charted quite well historically, and this one is actually no exception, because this was their highest that they ever got in the albums poll. They got third place, I believe. If I go look into both Absolution and Black Holes and Revelations, Absolution got number 9. Black Holes and Revelations got number 4. So that got pretty high. So it's not denying that. This got number 3.
Yeah.
Which is the highest Muse ever got in the album's vault. It beat out, and I'm just going to do the top 10 because it's pretty interesting, and it's a bit of a wonder back to 2009. Number 10 was Passion Pit's Manners.
Oh.
Number 9 was Lisa Mitchell's Wonder. That's Australia. Never got out of there. Number 8 is Paul Dempsey's Everything Is True. That's a Something for Kate frontman. Number 7 was Yeah Yeah Yeah's It's Blitz. Number 6 was Sarah Blasco as Day Follows Night. Big in Australia, wasn't big overseas. This is where it now starts to become the more interesting thing. Number 5 was Florence and the Machine's Lungs.
Ooh.
So it beat that album. And it beat out at number 4 was Mumford & Sons' Sigh No More.
Okay. So what beat this out?
So what beat... Well, number 2, and I agree with this. You two might not agree with it. And by might not, it's probably a might for Tricks. We'll see. Number 2, and just meaning as beating Muse, not as number 2. I know both of you won't agree. It's the second best is 2009. Number 2 was the Temper Trap's Conditions.
That's so different of a choice. I don't know how
and
to feel about that.
I agree personally. Not by much, but I agree. Now, I want to see if you can remember what was the biggest indie album of 2009, and I'll give you a hint, it's not Australian.
2009 indie.
And you will hit yourself when you realize what it was, because no other album was going to beat it that year.
Fleet Foxes?
I was gonna say Fleet Foxes.
It's not not US. It is European. It's not England. I'm narrowing down the countries here.
You're probably gonna be right. I'm gonna be fucking angry when I hear what it is. I just can't think of it.
I'll give you even one more hint. You talked about a one-hit wonder, and it kind of shares it, not fully, but the album title references the same thing that one-hit wonder references. I'm building this up because you're going to be so pissed when you forget what it is.
Absolutely.
And because we've got limited time.
Tired.
The one-hit wonder you were talking about was Rock Me Amadeus.
Right.
The album is Wolfgang Amadeus Phoenix.
Oh, I don't know Phoenix that well, so that's fine.
I'm shocked. Phoenix was fucking huge in 2009.
I am drawing.
I did not listen to modern music in 2009.
I mean, granted, it wasn't
on the radio, and I don't remember Phoenix being.
It wasn't number 1 in the US, but I think actually surprisingly only 1901 charted in the top 100 for US. I would have thought Litzomania did, but it actually didn't. There you go.
If you asked me at that time period anything about Phoenix, I would have said, "Oh yes, that guy dated Sofia Coppola."
That was the number 1 album of that year.
Interesting.
Now I got to go get up the Radiohead ones. But as we're doing that, shall we go into favorites, least favorites?
Sure.
I'll start. Favorites is Resistance and Undisclosed Desires and the Exogenesis outro. Those 2 singles hold up, and that outro is actually really good. Least favorites, I'd love to just say Uprising, but it's not actually the worst. I would probably actually put it as United States of Eurasia. I think that is the worst song.
Yeah, like I said, I think this works wonderfully as an album. I think when you pick it apart, it starts to lose its luster a bit. I will agree that the Exogenesis Symphony is the best thing here. I do like Undisclosed Desires. I will also give it to I Belong to You. I think there is a really fun moment in I Belong to You where Matt Bellamy sings "You Are My Muse," and referencing the band itself, of course, but then he gets cut off by then the whole sequence that's in French. And then after the French part, he finally comes back in with the "sa" part of Muse. It's very stupid, but I do quite like that. Least favorite.
Chicks, you just got to do a blender, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So
Least favorite's Guiding Light.
Least favorite.
Guiding Light.
That was close to mine. What I forgot to mention as well is the actual hottest 100 placings. It'll go here. I believe 84 was United States of Eurasia, 34 was Resistance, 19 was Undisclosed Desires, and 9 was Uprising.
Huh. Fair enough. Radiohead time. The comparison. I think this is the most direct comparison we can make. I think this is fair.
I think it's even funnier because you want to know exactly how direct of a comparison? In the top 10 albums of 2003, when this came out, Radiohead with Hail to the Thief got number 3. But this was not their highest placing because they had already won twice before.
Yes, and Hail to the Thief is infamously a step down after Kid A and Amnesiac.
Not by much, though.
Yeah.
It's a step down for Radiohead standards, but it's still a good album.
Yeah. This is kind of them doing, like, they're not necessarily trying to reinvent the wheel again. They're not trying to, like, do a whole new direction. They're just trying to kind of, I think, continue the fusion of, like, electronic and rock. And from at least what I was reading, you know, they were trying to be a little more less interested in, like, protracted, processed, like, lyrics and music and over again, just kind of like belaboring the point. This is meant to be much more organic, and I think was recorded over like a couple weeks for the most part, and then kind of re-recorded later in bits and pieces when the songs didn't work out like they wanted to. But they were trying to be
now.
very
I
fast
actually want
it.
to. I want to actually mention the full hottest 100. So that's why I'm here for this album as well, because I think we did it with Muse, and it's kind of interesting because if I'm now talking about the top 10 albums of 2003, number 10 was The Living End, Modern Artillery. I don't really think anyone talks about that album anymore, and everyone still kind of goes to the original Living End. Number 9 was Muse's Absolution of that year.
There.
Number 8 was John Butler Trio with a live album in 2001 to 2002. I think that might be, there might be a bit another, but I think that might be the only live album that made it. Unless, was this also a live album? No, it wasn't. No, there was another. They might have had Live from Mars, because number 7 was Ben Harper's Diamond on the Inside. I think Live from Mars might have made it as well, but I'll have to check that. 6 was Something for Kate's The Official Fiction. 5 was Jack Johnson's On and On, which is probably now starting to get to a bit more familiar territory for you two. Number 4 was Jet's Get Born. That's the one with Are You Gonna Be My Girl?
Yes.
Yeah, I've never been a big Jet fan, don't worry, I'm not really going to ever cover them. Number 3 was Radiohead's Hail to the Thief. And number 2, you'll kind of probably be surprised in hindsight, wasn't number 1, but it's Australia we're talking about, is the White Stripes Elephant.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one with Seven Nation Army on it. You would have thought that would have been huge, and it was, because it got 5 tracks in the Hottest 100, but the album that beat it was one that had not only 5 tracks as well, but 3 in the top 10. And that was Powderfinger's Vulture Street.
Damn.
Not Meteora. No, Linkin Park only ever had 1 song in a Hottest 100.
Fair enough.
One Step Closer in 2001. This is the start I can just remember on the top of my head. Now, it's Powderfinger's Vulture Street with Baby I've Got You on My Mind, but I don't even know that reached America.
I don't think he did.
No. That's what was considered better than Hail to the Thief. At 49, 2 plus 2 equals 5. At 48, there.
That's it?
Yep.
Wow, okay. Yeah, so this is another album heavily inspired, not as heavily. I mean, Muse fucking went for it, but Radiohead still inspired by 1984. 2 plus 2 equals 5 being a really famous plot point in the book. I will say they were probably a little more overtly political. Of course, Hail to the Thief being Hail to the Chief kind of turn that people were referring to George Bush with anyway. And I think I was looking at the Genius page for some of the lyrics, and Tom York was very blatantly explaining what some of them meant, being like, yeah, this is referencing this is referencing that, like, actual event that happened. So they were not trying to hide it. They were just being a little bit more abstract, but more than willing to own up to it.
I mean, the other thing I find about this album, comparing it to Resistance, is that this just hits harder instrumentally. I think there's just a lot more interesting instrumentation that happens in it. But one of the things that makes it probably the best comparison that we've done is that this also kind of has a bit of that same influences instrumentally that Muse does. There's a bit of, it's not so much on the classical idea, I think it's a bit more on the electronic, but there is still all that influence happening in it.
Yeah, and
I mean, I have the 2+2=5 single, and that has a Fortet remix of Scatterbrain on it.
they seem to like the Fortets quite a bit. That they show up again and again. I feel like on their remixes, but
yeah,
this album opens really well. Like 2+2=5 and Sit Down Stand Up are phenomenal opening tracks. They just hit hard. They really, I think, get you fucking amped for what's coming. And I think Sail to the Moon is a great kind of like switch it up and like get you into something that's a little bit more somber, lullaby like, and dream like. But then after that, I think is where they start losing the plot a little bit. The album's kind of a mess.
I mean,
flow wise and like what's here. I think it's longer than it should be. It's messy.
It's not a short album. It's 57 minutes. One thing that I hate gets lost on the Spotify version is we don't get the alternate titles for every song in it as well.
Yeah, they're on Wikipedia at least. Hail to the Thief, I believe
it's on the version I have.
Oh, nice. I think Hail to the Thief was known as The Gloaming. That was like one of the alternate titles as it was. 2+2=5 is The Lukewarm, Sit Down, Stand Up is Snakes and Ladders, Sail to the Moon, Brush the Cobwebs Out of the Sky, Backdrifts as Honeymoon is Over, Go to Sleep as Little Man Being Erased, Where End and You Begin as the Sky is Falling In, We Suck Young Blood as Your Time is Up, For the Gloaming is Softly Open Our Mouths in the Cold, There is the Bony King of Nowhere, I Will is No Man's Land, A Punch Up and a Wedding is No, 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 No. Myxomatosis is Judge, Jury, and Executioner, which also comes back around when we get to Atoms for Peace. Scattered Brain is As Dead as Leaves, and A Wolf at the Door is It Girl, a Rag Doll.
An interesting thing to also mention as well, when we're talking about length as well, is that Radiohead themselves have actually come out and criticized this album.
Yes.
Particularly due to its length.
They kind of said that, I think they released an alternative track list. Yes, they did. They released a track list that takes out Backdrifts, We Suck Young Blood, I Will, and Punch Up at a Wedding. Which I agree with cutting 4 tracks and make it 10 tracks. I don't think those are all of the songs to cut though. I would cut different ones. To me, I would cut Backdrifts. I would cut Go to Sleep. I would also cut.
I would not cut Go to Sleep. Go to Sleep was one of my favorites of this.
I would cut Punch Up at a Wedding. I think that's a fun song, but it's easily, I think, excised. But instead of I Will, I would cut There.
For the sense of the album, I agree.
I don't think
There is a good song, but
it doesn't
album wise,
it's the longest song, and it doesn't it doesn't go forward with anything. If we're looking at forward momentum, if we're gonna keep Go to Sleep has to go somewhere else, because Backdrifts and Go to Sleep, they don't really do much where they are. Going from Sail to the Moon to Where End and You Begin is a lot more interesting of a jump, I feel like. Keep you interested.
It's kind of weird in the sense that, like, when we talk about this album as well, like, the better way, seemingly, of enjoying this is to treat it as a compilation.
In a way, I don't know. What is it a compilation of? It's just a compilation of their recordings in the post
basically, yeah,
Kid A Amnesiac period. But I mean, like, for what they are just quite a variety of sound here, and not that Kid A and Amnesiac were super cohesively, together like the Resistance could be. But even then, there is a sense that nothing really quite gels the way it should. Like, if this is meant to be some
unfortunately, you are correct on that.
This is meant to be some kind of like dream, and like, there are a number of references to sleeping and a number of musical kind of calls to like dreamlike states and things. It kind of overstays its welcome and becomes kind of a nightmare in a way.
I mean, I wouldn't say it that bad. I mean, it's still quite a good album in the end, like Resistance is.
Yeah, there's
I don't think there's any point in which it just turns yeah, I don't think there's any point in which this turns into a nightmare to listen to. It is daunting, but I mean, let's not act like this is the longest album we've ever covered.
No.
And I mean, there are a lot of albums that are longer now these days that do get a lot of success. If I'm talking about Hottest 100s, I mean, Gang of Youths won it in 2017 for the album spot, and I don't know if that is the longest, but it would definitely be up there because that album goes for, I believe, 73 minutes, if I'm correct. 74 minutes 49. I'll have to actually. I'm gonna go check that now, but I believe that's the longest one to have ever won, and that's nearly 20 minutes longer. That's not something to sneeze at.
It's just interesting that like I feel like I've listened to a lot of albums that are longer that have not super minded. I mean, like The Resistance is about 55 minutes. You know, this is 56, so it's a little bit longer. But to me, The Resistance is super doable. This feels like a slog. And this feels like okay, I gotta get through all 14 songs. Here we go. Let's just do our best. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the way the songs are arranged. It opens well, but you could also say 2 + 2 = 5 and Sit Down, Stand Up are also two intro tracks, perhaps, that could probably have been split up and put somewhere else to kind of keep momentum going. And then I don't know. I think Backtrips especially just is poorly placed where it is, where it's another one of those electronic tracks that you see in like Kid A and things, but where it is, it just kind of holds things up.
I'm just doing this research here. I believe actually, yeah, I don't think there's anything. It is an outlier now. Kind of looking at it because the next longest I've so far seen has been 53 minutes. So I kind of rescind a bit of my comments, but it's still showing that like tolerating longer albums is a thing that can be done in the public.
Oh yeah, I mean,
How long was the Suburbs? That might be actually quite a long album. The Suburbs was 64 minutes in that one, so that's.
yeah, Arcade Fire comes through.
Uh,
Uh,
why don't I bother clicking on Wolfgang Amadeus Phoenix? I know that's a 36-minute album.
I will say a few things. This is the last album to be on the regular big label EMI. After this, Radiohead went and kind of did their own kind of releases and did their own thing. So this is kind of an end of an era in that way, which is why I like ending here for the year. Another thing is they hit number 3 on the Billboard charts. They topped it in the UK. ARIA charts, it peaked at number 2.
Definitely not a surprise. I've looked at all the countdowns to the winners after 2003. In 2007, Grand National won from John Butler Trio, and that album goes for just barely under an hour. So, I mean, having these long types of albums have shown to have some success, and I mean, this one did just what became number 3. That's not like it's unsuccessful.
Yeah. This one also won a Grammy for Best Engineer Non-Classical. Nominated for Best Alternative, did not win.
Which one won Best Alternative?
Let's take a look. What was happening? So in that year, oh yeah, this would make sense to you. The White Stripes.
Yeah, that actually does make sense.
It was going up against the Flaming Lips, Yeah Yeah Yeahs, and Sigur Rós.
Which Sigur Rós? That would have been the
parentheses, the bracket album.
Yeah.
That's I just kind of went for it.
No. That's a different album.
Yeah.
Which tell you what, that's a 72-minute album.
And of course, the one that won it the year before was Coldplay's "A Rush of Blood to the Head," and Coldplay actually won it twice.
I would defend that. I would defend "A Rush of Blood to the Head."
It's also won Best Alternative after Radiohead won for Kid A. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, White Stripes.
Well, you know.
White Stripes definitely fucking won a number of times this decade. They won for Elephant, they won for Get Behind Me, Satan, and for Icky Thump.
Yeah, well, both Icky Thump and Elephant were huge albums. Get Me Behind Me, Satan. Like, it was definitely huge when it came out. I feel like people don't really talk about that album as much as the other two now.
And of course, Wolfgang Amadeus Phoenix also won the year it came out.
I'd argue people don't even really talk about Icky Thump too much anymore. It's mostly just Elephant, but
Yeah.
I mean, they're both got songs that people still listen to. I mean, Elephant was just like better.
Tricks, do you have anything to say about the Radiohead stuff?
I really don't. Radiohead, just that, like, I still don't think I'm allowed to have opinions on Radiohead because it can't understand it in a way. It doesn't click with.
Interesting. I'd hoped that some of the tracks on here would have maybe bridged things, but it seems like the only thing that really bridged anything was the live album for you.
Yeah,
That's
like I'm still actively trying. I'm listening, but like it just like I feel like Radiohead is just one of those bands I haven't.
maybe in Rainbows will do
Now,
something.
hold on.
I don't know.
There's something we
Maybe.
forgot to mention about the Resistance.
Yeah,
It was a September 11 album, not the 2001 or 2009.
that is fair. Muse did definitely do the thing and release on September 11th, didn't they?
Yep.
That is the level of like political statement they're willing to make. But again, that's just like a haha, let's be funny moment.
Well, to be fair, they are English, not American.
Yeah, but they would know. You know they would know.
I mean, they would know, but it doesn't mean that's what they're thinking about.
Sure, I suppose.
I mean, when I was a kid in 2009, September 11 came, I didn't suddenly go trying to think about America. I was a kid in Australia in 2009. My first thought was mostly, I hate this school.
That's fair. But I mean, if
And
you're
that didn't lead anywhere else because I wasn't American.
but if you're a political band making a political record and your whole thing is globalism and let's make all of the states and all the countries one singular nation, I feel like I don't know. 9/11's somewhere in your mind a little bit.
I mean, potentially it might cross it, but I don't think it's going to be a main focus. I think there's like a lot of other things that have happened. I think it's a very American thing to immediately think that 9/11 was actually undermined.
You're probably not wrong. You're exposing my American way of thinking. How could
Damn
it not be in
straight.
anyone else's mind? Crazy.
It was all over the news.
Let's see. 2 + 2 = 5 was a studio test. They did it in 2 hours. I think that's pretty impressive. Uh, I Will was a Kid A Amnesiac holdover. And this is also the sessions where they began to work on Burn the Witch, which finally came out on Moonshade Pool.
It's weirder that a moon-shaped pool kind of probably is also more of a B-side album, but like I think in hindsight we all say moon-shaped pool was better.
I mean, Moonshade Pool, is it going to be the last Radiohead album? It feels like there's a chance it could be because it has a number of things that are just kind of like finally tying up loose ends. You have the studio
In a sense,
version,
yeah.
the studio version of True Love Waits, of course, and Burn the Witch, and kind of a revitalization after the controversy that a King of Limbs kind of went through. The King of Limbs, not a King of Limbs.
I haven't really got much more to say about Helps of the Thief.
Messy album. It's definitely at least interesting to have this in the discography for the sense of like, yeah, Radiohead's never perfect. You know, you got to have your little lumps here and there to kind of keep things interesting. I feel like, but it's not a bad album by any means. I still consider it pretty high compared to a lot of things this week.
Favorites: 2 + 2 = 5, Go to Sleep, and Scatterbrain. Least favorites: probably probably something like Backdrifts or yeah, probably something like Backdrifts, to be honest.
My favorites: 2 + 2 = 5 and Sit Down, Stand Up. Phenomenal opening. Two great songs. I like Mixomatosis and Scatterbrain as well. My least favorites probably Backdrifts and Go to Sleep.
And Tricks is a blunder.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so now we're on
the
to
real reason to
the
have an episode this week.
The absolute behemoth that I sent. Well, probably Dominic on to research. Let's be honest. But yes, I've decided to probably do the only covering we'll do of this artist because I feel like we've probably covered everything we need to cover in this, but we've covered
I might go
2
back
EPs and
later.
2 albums. Maybe, we'll see. Yes, two EPs and 2 albums by Wollongong-based artist Nothing Rhymes with David. If you don't know who Nothing Rhymes with David is, it is the uh, music from musician slash journalist and slash that guy that you see at literally every fucking show in Sydney or Wollongong or sometimes Brisbane and Melbourne, because I've managed to be there and see him there too. It happens. David James Young, who has been doing this all for a while. If it's probably one of the more interesting ones to research. Yes, he was a part of and originally a solo project in 2016 after the release of Things Work Out for People Like You. It became a band, kind of cycled members in 2020. That was the first album with actual members. Apologies to one of the members, I can't remember your name. I can only remember Hazel, and that's because she keeps posting stuff on the Luca Brasi Tassie posting. So that's becomes a bit more
Well, that's
memorable.
fun.
In there. And I think last year or maybe the year before, the band called it quits, and the work of Nothing Rhymes with David had come to a close. They did it, I think, opening up for another band. I don't even think it was a headline show that they ended with. I could be wrong with that. I'm just basing this off the top of my head from all this research. There were some interesting shows that would kind of just never happen as well. I think they got hit a bit by COVID as well, even though Sky Lonely did come out at the end of 2020, which is during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Excuse me. It is interesting to see that they were actually supposed to be on the Yours and Loud lineup for 2022. Unfortunately, that festival got cancelled, I believe, due to Refa, but I could be wrong. It definitely wasn't because of bankruptcy, because I went to Yours and Loud this year and saw him there too. Yeah, this is Nothing Rhymes with David. It is probably my reply to every time Dominic picks a local artist.
And I love it. It's
I would
fantastic.
like to I'd like to kind of preface this by saying I'm not getting this album as much as I want to. My phone does not play nicely with Bandcamp, and so I'm only able to listen to these each like once. So my recollection.
You're really breaking up there.
That's fair though. I understood what you said.
Yeah.
I I don't think we're listening to what is the pinnacle of music here, but I think we are listening to what is actually a really great example or summary of underground Bandcamp music.
Yeah.
I am disappointed at how little attention this has all gotten. I think this is a really great example of somebody that started out with acoustics and, kind of, they could have been demo projects, they could have been full tracks, it could go either way, and evolved over time into a band and then to like a bigger band. Like, there was ambition, there was like a change of style and an evolution. It's quite good. It's surprising how people just aren't paying attention to it. Like, on Spotify, granted, only Sky Lonely is on Spotify, but there's only like 9 monthly listeners, and it's really fucking well produced.
It's interesting because there are moments on here where there is some definitely stylistic production choices, like the Useless Blues at the end of Double Negative All the Way
Yes,
is suddenly a very lo-fi kind of blues rocky track nearly,
and he pulls it off.
but it's very distorted.
Yeah, like he's kind of trying to be like a record from back in the day or something, and it works fine.
Mm.
And I think it was on the Equals EP that has a bit of the I thought what is it, track 2 that has that really weird warbling sound. It's a little abrasive and hard to listen to.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's 25.
Yeah. So and then he has a fair
Um,
amount
it,
of like samples and whatnot too, like movie samples, Stranger Than Fiction, things like that.
well, plus two is basically just a bunch of samples before going into There are some obviously vocals and stuff on it, but starts off with what the Pugy from Falls. It's a very kind of recognizable drum riff happening there, and then literally just ends with the opening to Cog's Run.
I mean, Hey Mate was kind of a
So they're
similar
not
thing off
like
Double Negative
it's not
too.
the most. Yeah, yeah. It's some. The only problem I have with the samples on it is like I think the drumming is fine. I think the drumming kind of works a bit well. But the kind of Cog sample at the end doesn't feel like it's really using it to change it. It just feels like that's Cog.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's probably different for you because I don't. You're well aware of Cog.
I did not recognize any of the songs that he was using, but hey, I mean, I could check the
Me
Bandcamp. I
either.
can see that.
I'm not even in double negative all the way
Maybe I may know what they are,
because
but I wasn't.
the he credits it. Hey Mate samples a live Death Cab for Cutie bootleg.
Yeah, but I don't even know which song it is.
I'm not too sure what song it is either. I feel like the sample's a bit more well changed than that one, but I was surprised that you didn't at least catch that one because usually when it comes to finding random samples that no one else can hear, you're just like, oh yeah, I know that.
That's true.
It's the
We did that.
Dominic special.
We did that a ton on the Green Day stuff that we just did, but
Mm.
yeah, no, I have listened to Death Cab. I don't know all the bootlegs though. It could be any number of things. I don't think he was going for someone that was specifically recognizable, at least. But no, I was really impressed by all of this, and I think the further we go down the hole of like things work out for people like you and into Sky Lonely, that like this guy has a lot of passion, and you can hear the evolution in his singing voice. You can hear the evolution in his guitar playing. There's some really nice riffs and things when we get to the net with the albums, like Things Work Out and Sky Lonely, that are just really, really nice.
I
And
think personally things work out for people like you where like it kind of it all summarizes it. I think that's where it's like all working together properly. Not that
yes,
I don't mind the whole band arrangement happening in it, but I think just as a cohesive album,
yeah,
it
it's
it,
Things Work Out's a little bit better than Sky Lonely.
it makes sense that he opened for Crywank when they were in Australia. Not when I heard him, it was back. I think it was probably back in like 2016 or even earlier.
Sure, sure.
Uh, because this album kind of sounds like Crywank. Not in the sense of like its production. I think it's a lot cleaner than Crywank, but Crywank has a certain style. Going with
Yeah,
that, but it kind of in a similar kind of like how it's more just talking about himself in a sense, or talking about like his kind of personal problems. It does remind me just a lot of oh fuck, what's the title? I'm getting a title because I had it in my head, but I've completely forgotten it. I don't want to fuck it up. It is Tomorrow is Neither Yesterday and Every Day is Stupid.
I began listening to him, reminding myself of like the early stuff reminds me of like when we covered Lucas Skoukis's solo stuff, the stuff he had on like his SoundCloud. And I was getting some like flashbacks to that with like just the guitar and the vocals and whatnot. And as we got into the albums, I was reminded more of like Smith Street Band and songs like Dog Flag specifically reminded me of like that Violent Soho Hockey Dad type of sound. A little bit more of a 90s throwback sort of thing. Yes?
Yeah, I mean those were definitely all would have been bands as well that would have been influenced. So around the sound, like I've since the Georgia Mac Will Wagner incident, these people like him haven't really listened to Smith Street Band since. I could be wrong. I've seen
Sure, sure, sure.
some artists that haven't really followed them, but definitely during this time, and you can see in the Scene Live list that he has on his listening page, he definitely was big on those artists. I know damn well he was at the the Violent Soho farewell gig because I saw him there as well.
Sure. I like this idea that you just have seen him numerous times, and then at some point you just
I
started.
showed you the meme. And
Yeah.
the meme is like, there's no way I'll see anybody I know in this 45,000 stadium gig 10 minutes in, and it's just him walking in. I'm not the only one who would be like that. He references it in his own song. He's pretty self-aware that is what he's known for.
How did you get on this track of train of thought again?
For the
Covering
for
him
that, you were
and
comparing him.
covering him and doing
How
all
do I
this
get?
stuff.
I just saw that he had a band. And I just went through the rabbit hole, and it was fun to go down the rabbit hole. I was like, hey, yeah, this sounds like something Dominic would have fun researching.
Was it because you kept seeing him, or how did you find out that he had a band?
I can't even remember that. I think I probably. Might have been from his Instagram or something like that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I just really
Yeah.
like that you also went down the rabbit hole for once, and it's super fun. I really enjoy doing this stuff. I think, especially
no.
when you find an artist as talented as this.
And it's great to see that there's actually just so much recordings that are just on the internet. I mean, you can see there's a couple of his solo stuff. I believe it's the same person who did that Luca Brasi video that I made you watch.
Yeah.
Of the gig. I think it's the same person recording it. And there's like him at Beat Disc. Back when Beat Disc used to do little small shows, and he's just doing like a small set. I didn't watch them all. I saw the one where he screwed up remembering the lyrics to The Impression That I Get for a bit, but then he finally remembers them.
Oh, that's fun. I like that. That's cute. I've grown. Let's see. You are. I'm not listed in the people that own this album, but I do own this album. Things work out for people like you. Because you are definitely listed.
It's because of Am I listed?
Yeah, you're the
I
first
am
one.
listed. What do you know? Hell yeah. Maybe I paid $1 for it. I couldn't remember. This was one that was
Oh, I'm listed. I'm just like.
Because some of them are only free downloads.
Yeah, the first 3 EPs are free downloads.
Yeah, let's see where you. Interestingly enough, you scroll past some of the people and then you're like, oh yeah, no, I know who that is. But
yeah, fair.
In the purpose of we're not covering them, and I'm not totally sure about how happy the public they are, I will not mention who they are.
But I do kind of want to listen to the other
I will have to say.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dominic.
No, I do want to cover the other stuff at some point. Beard, Logic Riddles, and Little Bear. That's all I wanted to say.
All right. I will say I'll have to listen to this once I have a phone again that plays nicely with band. But I really enjoyed what I listened to. You really couldn't tell you exactly what it was. I just remember quite.
That's fair. I mean, he starts out in 2011, and I think he really captures some fun stuff about what music was like in 2011, 2012. Kind of that indie, but also like when Guy and acoustic guitar was pretty interesting still, and like, not that it's not interesting, but I don't know, like that kind of folk punky sing talk, really passionate guitar playing that you kind of had to be there for. I feel like sometimes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too fond in Sky Lonely of the talking tracks, the opener and the closer. Not too much about what the concept or the topics are about. I think they're fine. He has so much of a better singing voice than he does a talking voice on these tracks.
Yeah, I do believe that,
and it feels weird because everybody talks a lot more than they sing. So you'd be like, oh well, surely it'd be the same, but no, they're completely different things. That's why we never listened to Michael Jackson do a talking voice on a song.
That would have been very interesting to hear, I will say. But I do like listening to Capricorn Emerald and Emerald Capricorn. I do think they're nice little bookends that I don't think his talking voice is bad, or anything. I think it works quite well for what he's trying to do. Having that switch from like the first person narration of like how bad things are in the beginning to a different look at how bad things are in the end, which is a more third person objective moment, is cool. and it gives things a little bit more of
Was
a cohesive structure, even though it doesn't really follow anything in the middle of it.
another interesting thing to mention as well is that the album was produced by Jason Lolly from Friends with Wrong fame, which is, it's not the biggest name in Australian history, but it's definitely still quite a big name to produce an album.
Oh yeah, I am disappointed that they called it quits. I think this band still has a place, and it's like you listen to songs like
I
Hate Castle
think,
Road, and it just they just sound like they could be your mainstream hit.
in a sense, I also feel like I prefer what things work out for people like you was doing than Sky Lonely, and I feel like I could see them not really knowing where to go anymore after Sky Lonely.
Yeah, yeah. I
Although, if you want the greatest meme out of all of this, I am actually seeing him at the New Year's Eve gig at Wollongong because he's literally doing a DJ set. And do you want to know what his DJ name is? Apparently,
but
it's DJ Y.
I love that. Do you suppose that
So
he's friends
we
with
get
Spencer
that.
Scott?
That's apparently the future.
Do you suppose he's friends with
Oh yeah,
Spencer Scott?
no, absolutely.
I wonder if we can interview one,
That's
we get
yeah.
the other.
I've seen him say hi before. At Turnstile, actually, specifically.
Because Spencer Scott has some solo work that we have not covered. That'd be interesting to cover. Because he has a
That
split.
is true. We have done.
He has a split with Georgia Mack of all people, or all bands, I should say.
I mean, I can't be a one out here telling you who we can get interviews with. I can tell you that some people are definitely quite busy people, but I am also not the person who usually schedules these interviews. So
It's all about what we can get out there and get.
you can't. Why do I keep putting my arms up with the flat arms like that? I don't know, and expecting that you two can see me.
I'm desperately trying not to fall asleep, guys. I'm sorry.
You're good.
You're trying your best.
But yeah, what we do have from the selection of tracks here, we have quite a variety, even though there is definitely one style that takes up most of this, and that is that kind of anti-folk punk is how I'm going to describe it. It's very, it's quite folky, but it's not quite folk. Like,
no,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I was trying to say something similar.
Yeah, and that's the style that is most prevalent through all that we listen to, even if it is kind of abandoned in Sky Lonely. We kind of really only get it in the bookends, and then we are kind of more turned into what is. It's weird. We kind of started with this experimental folk, turning into anti-folk is what I'm going to things work out for people like you, just because I'm comparing it to Crywang, to basically just an emo album at the end.
Yeah, I think
Which, if you want to tie that into fifth wave, you can, but I think it's a stretch.
But I mean, I was more to say, does he have a place in fifth wave? Would that be a thing? I think if they had gone on a little bit longer and kind of rethought what they were doing, they might have had a place.
Potentially, but we're in a state where we might just never know. Maybe they reform, maybe they don't. All I know is that I have asked him if he has the cassette, and I am currently waiting to see if he can find the cassette. And that is my end goal out of all this, is to just randomly have that cassette in my collection.
That's fair.
And because I did issue that challenge, but I believe both of you, if you even tried, would have come up as empty-handed from online searches to find that cassette.
Yeah, no cassette.
But it definitely does exist because I've asked him personally, and he has acknowledged its existence.
It'd be how it be. If we can get more obscure, fun stuff like that, we can try.
We can only dream. But yeah, that is it. I can't even really say that's the sound of just pure Australian underground, but I think it is a good representation of just Bandcamp DIY and what is like actually the underground. Even though this person is kind of still one of the most popular people in the alternative scene in Australia, and especially in the East Coast, even if not everybody knows him by name. And it's weird because he's not even just really. I wouldn't even think he would be happy describing himself as alternative. I think he just likes music, is the best way of describing it. Because, I mean, he literally, one of the songs he says he went to a Nicki Minaj concert and he liked it. And then talks about how he doesn't really feel like he fits in like the punk or a specific kind of scene. But I think that's not really like a thing to worry about because he kind of just likes music, and I think that's fair.
Yeah, as long as you like music and you're putting out good work, that's what matters. And I think he's doing good stuff, and I wish that this band would continue in some way. I really do. He may have missed the first few waves of the Bandcamp, indie explosion, but there's still room. I thank you for picking this.
It is so much better than when we picked Spaniello.
That's probably still one of my more random picks. That's not even a local scene person to me. But yes.
Well, I feel like if we actually went to one that you have picked, I would actually compare it to Gnosis is Alive on most it's pronounced.
Yeah, that's perhaps. That was a little bit more. I mean, that's a little bit more now and like underdeveloped. I feel like that still has evolution potential, where we can kind of see how this evolved at least.
I mean, just had a fucking voice crack there on audio. No, it's not like this is the first ever work that he's been a part of. I've seen from our research that he was a part of a couple bands before this as well. None of them lasting this long. I think the most any of them lasted was 3 years, roughly.
Yeah, a couple years, 3 years, something like that.
One of them, I think, lasted a couple months, maybe. It just says 2009. Can't remember
Yeah,
what the title of the band was, but yeah.
but I mean, this is his life, right? He does music journalism. He does music. Hopefully, he continues to do both. He had a
Yeah,
post
he
recently.
literally did the Luca Brasi article that you posted in here when we were doing Luca Brasi.
Unironically just posting what I found online, and it's the guy.
Yep.
And
He
that's
also did one for Spanish love songs No Joy, which I that one I was just trying to grab a drink in at Hamilton Station, and as I was finding a place to sit down, he was literally just across, like probably across the place, literally interviewing two of the members just outside in the pub.
amazing. I
Pretty
love that.
cool.
He goes to over 200 shows a year on average, I suppose. And so I suppose if you're going to a number of them, you're just gonna run into him.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that I see him every show because people go to a lot of shows. I mean, he, you can literally see what shows he goes to because he publishes it
Yeah,
all on Instagram. But one of the things that I actually do respect that he does a lot of this, but one of the big things I respect that he does that a lot of people do is writing up all the set lists and setlist.fm
oh, that's cool.
because
I
it's
like
kind of
that.
a way of documenting or archiving, so you
Yeah,
actually get a lot of the shows that he's been to just like posted on the set list, which is cool. You can kind of usually tell what shows he will be at because if it's usually a big show, not always the case, but like if it's like the show to see, he'll probably be there.
sure.
Which I'm not always at. I fuck me friendly, me fucking up my own speech today. Literally yesterday, I was at Adam Newling and Hope D, and I think he was at the Paul McCartney gig, which is where that gift's from.
Sure, yeah. And then like you're gonna go see Freezer, and we will look back at you and love you forever. I don't think he's quite made it there yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen either of them, but I want to.
Sure, but I
Although
mean,
he has seen in Frieza.
what was that about Freezer? You broke up there.
I'm pretty sure he actually has seen Frieza.
Oh damn.
And we're going to the scene line, but let's go down here. Let's go down to the F section, and it's not on there. I don't think it's been updated, but I swear I saw one Instagram post which was of Frieza. I don't know when the last time any of these have been updated. He has definitely seen Garage Sale, which is like the same vein as Frieza.
I know he's updated his reviews, like his basic reviews for the year, because I know he listed the new Rolling Stones album and his stuff he's listened to and reviewed. So he's updating some
Well, the
stuff.
true question is, and of course not, he he needs to bloody hurry up and cover the whaler.
Yeah,
I
more
beg.
people should cover the Whaler.
Cover the whaler. If there's anything that you should get out of this, Mr. David, cover the whaler. I'm a whaler.
All right, Trix, do you have anything favorites, least favorites, any of that stuff to talk about? Probably not, but I'm just asking anyway.
No, too hazy for me. I could not listen to this album too much because of age.
Right. All right. I'll go through each thing for me. Double negative all the way. I think Flogging Fish is Sinking Ships, I think, is an interesting song because the first few notes is definitely Mr. Brightside, and then he stops, and then he makes a thing out of like doing like doo 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 and doo 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 doo, and like he does like a few different guitar plucks like that, and it becomes its own thing. But I just really like that it sounds like Mr. Brightside for a second. I also quite like the chapter of a book you've never read. My least favorite's gonna be Hey Mate, just out of hand. Equals, I quite like C Notes. I do like On Division. My least favorite's 25 just for the shrill sound. Things work out for people like you. Numb Chomsky, Get Changed Slightly. Song of the Square Peg's also pretty good. Carrie Fisher's Dog. My least favorite's probably Bone Sloan. Then Sky Lonely. I like the Capricorn Emerald, Emerald Capricorn bookends. Collins Forever is a fun kind of downer track. Hate Castle Road's pretty good. Dog Flag's pretty good. My least favorite's Barlow.
I'll do it the other way around because I agree with Sky Lonely. I think Hate Castle Road's the best track on there. Least favorite's Barlow. With Things Work Out for People Like You, Song of the Square Peg, Zombie by the Cranberries by Andrew Jackson Jihad, by is it,
By Nothing Rhymes with David.
yeah,
Yes.
by Nothing Rhymes with David. Yeah, I was like, did he add that on top of that? I just don't remember. Um, my favorites, I actually like Bones Sloan. Least favorite, probably Majority Report. Equals least favorite is +2. So I think it's a cool exercise in sampling, but in the end, the samples don't really sound like anything else. So it's like, yeah. Favorites probably C Notes. Double negative all the way. Favorites is Flocking Fish to Sinking Ships and definitely Useless Blues. I would honestly probably say Useless Blues is one of his best songs.
I would not disagree.
Least favorites probably Hey Mate. Yeah, Hey Mate's probably my least favorite.
Yeah.
And Trix, you just got to use the blender.
Yeah, because I my Bandcamp's fucked. Remember?
Yeah, no,
That's fair.
just get into confirmation.
You're trying your best. We can't.
All right.
ask
Well,
for
this
any
is
more than that.
this is the controversial part. Now, how do we rank all these?
I think I'm pretty.
I'll
ready
go
to
first.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get done with this so I can get back to sleep because I got a 4-hour shift. I got to work and 3 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Least favorites. I'm just gonna put Radiohead and Muse same spot. Then I'm gonna put Flock of Seagulls. Then I'm gonna put all of the Nothing Rhymes with David stuff, and then Dead Man top.
Dominic, I'm going to let you go because I'm still debating.
Okay. Yeah. So at the bottom, I'm gonna put Equals. Fine EP, but it's to me, I guess, just the least. Something has to be last. After that, I'm gonna do Double Negative all the way. I do quite like the songs in there a little bit more. There's a little bit more variety. After that, I'm gonna go with Flock of Seagulls. I think Iran's fine, but not a ton else really stands out to me. Then we're gonna do Sky Lonely, rather nice album. Things we got for people like you above that. We do Hail to the Thief above that, and then The Resistance at the top.
Okay, I'm going to agree and have Equals as the least favorite out of all of this, but not by much. I'm then going to put A Flock of Seagulls.
Fair.
I am then, after that, going to put Sky Lonely. I like double negative more than Skylonely. But do I put double negative there? So we've got that. That I would, yes, I would put double negative right after Skylonely. Then I'm gonna go put the Resistance.
Oh, bold choice.
And then I've only got the 3 albums left now, don't I?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so what do I think is the best out of these 3? I kind of had to just go into personal enjoyment and then talk about it. I think I'm going to put Dead Man's Bones as number 3.
Okay.
I'm going to put Things Work Out for People Like You as a number 2.
Okay.
But it's weird. I feel like I'm just doing it for the sake of Radiohead. Fuck it, we'll do the controversy. I'll switch it around. We'll go number 2 is Radiohead's Hail to the Thief, and number 1 is Things Work Out for People Like You. Because I think I'm
Fuck
genuinely
yeah.
probably going to go back to Things Work Out for People Like You more than I am to Hail to the Thief.
Hell yeah.
And I'm not saying that for clout.
What was that?
I said I'm not saying that for clout.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. All right, let's go into our picks for next week. Trix, you want to go first?
Yes. I have a bit of a theme because in 2 days it'll be Halloween. So I wanted to do one kind of final Halloween album, and I actually referenced it earlier in the. I'm going to be doing Mike Oldfield's Tubular. And then also because it stops being Halloween this week, and that means immediately Christmas season, we're going to be doing a Christmas album. We are going to be doing the 1990 album from Megadeth, Rest in Peace.
Oh. Shit. Okay. Fair
And
enough.
now I'm going to bounce so I can sleep.
All right, we'll post everything else for you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, Ritz. It's down to you and me.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what I pick for next week.
I have a few things I'm picking. I put it all into a playlist. But I am looking into covering a few different shades of queerness in this next pick. A few different queer acts or
Kinky.
queer adjacent acts. Number 1, I wanted to go back and because we covered You're Pretty earlier this year, and then I discovered that You're Pretty has now morphed into Dixon Dallas. Jake Hill has continued on this passage and has gone into a new persona. So we're going to cover the last single by You're Pretty, which is Fill Me Up, and then we're going to cover the few singles by Dixon Dallas. It'll all be in the playlist. And then, at the same time, the new Sufjan Stevens album came out, Javelin, and we cover Sufjan Stevens at least once a year. And this is another hard-hitting, emotional, fucking his partner died, and he had to make an album about it now moment. So we're gonna cover Javelin. But along with that, we're going to cover a few other things. He did the Mystery of Love song for the movie Call Me By Your Name. And then he did a little EP/single called Love Yourself with My Whole Heart, which was kind of a Pride Month kind of release in like 2018. So we're gonna do it a little bit before Pride Month, 2019 actually. But so we're gonna cover that as well. But originally, before all of this, my original plan was to cover the We Will Look Back and Love You Forever album 2022. So we're going to do that as well, along with their smattering of singles, Disco, If I Only Could Have Left Me When You Did, and Soberer.
Well, with those singles, Soberer and Disco, do we want to cover them now, or do we want to wait until the album's release where they're on?
Do we know for sure that those are on the album?
Yes, they've already been confirmed on the album. The track listing got confirmed a bit ago.
Oh shit, I didn't even know that.
So do you want to instead just replace those singles with what I was originally planning, but you can take as a pick, and that's the KK Slider, the KK Fever Dream, sorry, split EP that they're on with Godfuck, Summer 2000, and Servum Scordalis.
I mean, we could do that. So, Disco and Soberer are on the new album. Is If I Can Only Have Left You? Is that also on there?
No, that's a different version. That one we can,
So we'll keep that one single and
because
add the
that
KK slider.
yeah, I believe that if I only could have left you was a single that they released. I only just check up the shit on that, but I believe that's not on the album.
KK Fever Dream. Yeah,
Uh,
let's put that
yeah.
on there instead. I agree with you.
Usually I don't like to influence, but I feel like this is the case in which I had to step in. Cool. Well, that gives me a bit more to work with. So I'm thinking we're going to do a bash of EPs again.
Okay.
I think that's what I've usually slacked on uh, throughout the year. It's what we usually just need to go into. And I'm currently going through a couple and kind of just going off the top of my head here. Not gonna lie, but tell you what, we'll just search through 2023 and see what we can find. So if you want to just pretend to do the Jeopardy sound, I don't know, that might help.
I'm gonna cut this too to make it so it's not fully the song, so we don't get copyright struck. I'll just fuck around a little bit with this in the recording.
Well, we haven't done this one yet, have we? We haven't done Teenage Dads yet, have we?
Oh.
Fuck, I've copied the wrong thing again. I always do that. Yeah, well, let's finally cover Teenage Dads. That sounds like a good start, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I do have one that is like specific that I'm going to cover, but I just want to get a couple more things in here as well. Whilst I'm there for the sake of adding it. I feel like my partner would kill me if I don't eventually actually cover this. So I guess we can go catch this one on when I finally get it. Yeah, we'll cover Peach PRC's Manic Dream Pixie one there. That feels like a good thing to add. Here's some nice Wollongong emo. Yeah, let's go add you. Okay, hotels, come and find me. I'm adding in one more EP, but it's not from 2023.
Okay.
And there's a band that I listened to quite a bit in 2016 because in 2016, as the absolute fucking sad mess that I was of a person, because I, like every man is when they're 18, you get upset about a girl, except for you, obviously. But
the only exception ever.
Only exception ever. But around those times, like everybody gets their own fucking breakup album and all shit like that. There was an EP I listened to quite a bit, and unfortunately, that band has now just announced that they're calling it Crips. And so, out of personal celebration, I decided let's finally cover this band, which I don't think I've talked about much, but it's a fun little EP. So we're going to cover the Heartaches I Freak Out. Mostly because I'm probably going to spend the next week listening to Glad That You're Gone just out of respect and nostalgia.
Sure. Well, it seems like you found your picks pretty quickly, all things considered.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us now to Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells, Megadeth's Rust in Peace, Teenage Dad's Midnight Driving EP, Peach PRC's Manic Dream Pixie EP, OK Hotels Come and Find Me EP, The Heartaches I Freak Out EP. I have picked Assorted Singles by You're Pretty and Dixon Dallas, Sufjan Stevens' Javelin, as well as his Mystery of Love single and his Love Yourself with My Whole Heart little single release, as well as a 2022 album by We Will Look Back at You and Love You Forever, If I Can Only Have Left Me When You Did single, Riley's version, and the KK Fever Dream with Summer 2000 God fucking Salem's Cordialis. And of course, I just want to shout out the We Will Look Back at You track name, Wolf Sona of Wall Street, on that EP.
Yeah.
Fantastic name. Deep breath, that will do it for us. My name has been Dominic. You can catch me online at DACICHOCKI on Twitter. I am sometimes on the Games My Mom Found podcast. You can catch the Shadow Hearts episode that just got released on their channel on YouTube. It's also in the link below.
I have been Ritalin. You can catch me on my website, Ritalin for Kids, at github.io. You can also catch me on my YouTube channel that's in the description below, in which I post it. You can apparently also catch me at half the gigs that DJ Y's at.
Yes. Look for him at the DJY stuff. If you can find them
Yeah,
together, you'll
if
get
you
bonus
see,
points.
if you see, I was at the Great Gable gig on Friday. He wasn't there. At least I couldn't see him there. And I was told that if you got a picture of all three bananas, you won a car. So if you manage to get a picture of both him and me, despite not really knowing what I look like, you don't win anything, but you can pretend you want a car.
And then Trix's stuff will be in the description below as well. Thank you so much for listening. That'll do it. This has been 2.5 hours. Holy shit. Well, nearly at least. 2 hours and 23 minutes. And we're going to stop it here. Have a great time, everybody. See you next week.
Goodbye.